A very good morning and welcome to the first show of K24 this morning in the year 2021. Hope you crossed over well. My name is Jeff Morton. As always, even with a new year, some things do indeed remain the same. We'll be looking at the newspaper review, looking at some big stories going across the headlines right now. And really, it's all about the last-minute rush to reopen schools. That's what we discuss right here on the show. We'll be part of that particular discussion as well. We'd love to know how you're coping with this particular transition in terms of taking your children back to school, paying that school fees. We have all of that right here as we discuss that right here on the show. You can talk to me at I am Jeff Mote on Twitter. You can also get me on the WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen. Now, the first case of COVID-19 in the country was confirmed on March 13th, 2020, and with that came the closure of all learning institutions as the country and the government tried to get a grip on the novel coronavirus. It's been 9 months since that time, and during that period there have been directives and counter-directives on how the government was going to deal with the pandemic with regards to learning institutions. Are the schools adequately resourced? How do they manage the COVID protocols within institutions? And when we follow the money, 1.9 billion shillings for the supply of desks, a 4.6 billion shilling capitation grant to ensure schools are COVID protocol compliant. Can we account for these funds? That's what we discuss right here, reopening learning institutions and the different schools of thought on it. That's a conversation we have today on K24 this morning. But first, your newspaper headlines. Let's look at that. Front page of the People Daily this morning, last-minute rush to reopen schools. That's what we're looking at right here. CS Magoha saying we have done everything possible to ensure that our schools are ready to open. Where do we go from here? That's a question we need to answer, of course, and we'll be having that conversation right here in studio as we're joined by CAS Zach Kinodia from the Ministry of Education. We also have the CEO of the Kenya Private Schools Association as well, Mr. Peter Ndoro. We have his son as well, Mark Ndoro, who's in Class 7 right now, giving us a different perspective as to how this rush really is looking like, even as we get ready to reopen these learning institutions. But that's the front story on your copy of your People Daily. Also in the PD, EACC verdict sends panic wave among leaders. Declaration that impeached governors cannot vie for public office has ruffled feathers, with many fearing the net could be cast wider to include all civil servants. That story can be found in your copy of your People Daily as well. All the details therein. And also on the political front, me retire? Forget it. Raila stand on 2022. ODM leader Raila Odinga, right with Kenya Muslims National Advisory Council Chairman Sheikh Juma Ngao during a meeting in Mombasa yesterday, of course, as these lines are drawn in the sand as far as political duels are concerned. And there you have it. It's probably shaping up as we get closer and closer to 2022. Also on the front page of the PD, 2020 was tough, but few stood out. Of course, so notable personalities through the year 2020 and, of course, looking into 2021 as well. That story can be found in your copy of your People Daily. Don't forget, it is Kenya's #1 free newspaper, so you can get it as well and get fully informed. Front page of the Daily Nation now. It's the same story right there, different skew. Schools, the big test. Leap of faith, they're calling it. Learning resumes fully today after a 9-month break due to the COVID-19 pandemic, with learners and teachers bracing themselves for unusual experiences as parents worry about the safety of their children amid a possible spike in infections. How do they move from here? What do they do as far as this is concerned? These are some of the concerns that we'll be talking about right here on the show. And of course, we'll have that throughout the show and throughout the day as we give you continuous coverage of that, of course, on this particular station, K24 TV. That's already also front and center in your copy of your Daily Nation as well. Some of the measures the government has put in place: Uhuru extending curfew, children going to school across the counties were unable to travel overnight so as to report back on time. So already therein problems as to how to deal with that. You can find that story in your copy of your Daily Nation there. Also, health protocols. How do they deal with that as they move forward? This can be found in your copy of your Daily Nation. You can find all of that in detail therein. Also, in your copy of your Daily Nation, masks for needy children. How do they deal with this particular aspect? Parents must give their children masks, but government will provide protective items for needy children. So how do you actually differentiate who's needy, who's not? Very many questions being asked concerning that. And you can find that story in a copy of your Daily Nation. Also, the Daily Nation front page. BBI vote will flop in Mount Kenya, Uhuru warned. BBI is unpopular in Mount Kenya. For every 10 persons I surveyed, 6 oppose it, 2 support it, and the other 2 are indifferent. This coming from Senate Majority Chief Whip Irungu Kangata in a letter addressed to the President, really talking about how they can deal with this even as they move forward closer and closer to what should be a referendum this year. So you can find that story in your copy of your Daily Nation with all the details therein. Let's look at the front page of the Standard now. The schools gamble, they're calling it. Braving the risks, nation takes a bold step as 15 million learners tiptoe back to class after a 10-month closure and show what the future holds. From today, every available space, including tree shade, will be converted to classrooms as government rolls out measures amid serious concerns. This is a story you can find on page 2, and from page 2 to page 5 as far as it's concerned. That's not the only measure being taken. As you can see on the front page of the Standard, other measures being taken. Schools to convert all open spaces into classrooms. All teachers and students to wear masks at all times. Teachers and other staff aged 58 or with pre-existing conditions to work from home. All schools to ensure adequate hand-washing stations are put right across. And also non-essential visits to schools by parents and guardians banned. You can find that right there. Also, all extracurricular activities suspended for 90 days. And finally, on this particular list in your copy of your Standard, schools had to maintain a register of all 6 students or teachers and inform health authorities on the same. So these are some of the measures being put in place to safeguard students and teachers as well as they report back to learning today moving forward. Also, in your copy of your Standard, revealed Kangata's candid letter to the president. Hot on the heels of Senator Isaac Mwaura's exit, Senate wingman details what ails BBI in Central, double agents, and why Uhuru should take a hands-on approach. This can be found in your copy of your Standard. Once again, it's a story that's on page 6 with all the details therein. Also, as you look at that, of course, the 24-year fight for 2 billion shilling estate. What does it benefit a man to inherit billions of shillings in wealth and spend his life fighting for it? Charles Wanjohi, 52 years of age, has seen it all. Quite a story right there on page 12 and 13 concerning an inheritance dispute. And you can find that particular story and the intrigues concerning that particular estate in your copy of your Standard this morning. All the details are there. Let's look at the front page of the Star now. BBI risks defeat in central Kenya. Kenyatta warned. In a bold letter to Uhuru, Senate Majority Whip urges the President and Raila to change their strategy in the region. They're calling it an issue that needs to be having a hands-on approach by the President and the former PM being the co-principals of this particular initiative. Hostile ground, the Star terms it. Senator Kangata says referendum is unpopular. A referendum that should be taking place between April and June this year. How do they make those grounds a bit more acceptable to what will be coming their way? This is a story that is on page 6 of your Star. You can get all the details there. Also, in your copy of your Star, tax allowance shocker as civil servants resume. Civil servants are resuming work Monday amid proposed reduced allowances and higher taxes. The government had in April last year introduced a COVID tax relief introduced to cushion Kenyans from the economic effects of COVID-19. But MPs in a special sitting late last month passed the Tax Laws Amendment Bill 2020 sponsored by the National Assembly Finance and National Planning Committee. So as it stands right now, quite a shocker not only for civil servants but Kenyan citizenry at large as they brace themselves for what's usually a tough January, and they move forward with that. You can find that story in your copy of your Star as well with all the details therein. Finally, we look at the front page of your Business Daily now. CRB listing starts today as 90-day freeze lapses. So, of course, for many of those who had a bit of reprieve from the relief as far as this is concerned, from today, clock starts ticking with that. Thousands of borrowers risk blacklisting amid spike in bad loans. Total loans defaulted between March and October last year on COVID woes stands at 54 billion Kenya shillings. You can find the details of that particular story in your copy of your Business Daily. Also in the Business Daily, motorists to pay Chinese in dollars for expressway toll charges. Of course, as you can see, those foreign exchange rates always a sticky issue when it comes as to how to deal with this particular issue. And of course, even as you look at that, value for money, big question and big concern right there. And you can find that story in your copy of your Business Daily. Now, as you talk about that, and of course, and today it's all about reopening institutions and the different schools of thought as to how this should be done moving forward. Let's look at a story, of course, that we filed yesterday. Now, it's only a few hours before school resumes sessions fully. As you look at that, of course, there are very many issues that are of concern as far as parents are concerned and children as well as they get ready to go back to school, from the commute and also how safe are these learning institutions as far as the learners and the teachers and various stakeholders are concerned. We found this story yesterday. Let's take a look. Okay, it seems like we have a slight issue with that particular story. We'll be bringing that to you as we get it. Of course, as I told you earlier, on the show, we'll be joined by CAS of the Ministry of Education, Zach Kinothia. We'll also be joined by Peter Ndoro, who is the CEO of the Kenya Private Schools Association as well. We'll also be joined by his son, Mark, as we discuss this particular issue on how to deal with this moving forward. Also, later on in the show, joined by Janet Oko. She's an educationist to speak with all of this, of course, issues as well. And even as we do this, we want to hear from you. What are the issues that you have? What are the concerns you have as well, even as we begin this particular process of getting our children back to school? Is it a transport issue? Is it a finance issue as well? Because very many parents complaining the fact that even as they get ready to go back to school, the money really is in short supply. It's quite an issue of concern. You can get in touch with me at I am Jeff Mote or at K24 TV. Earlier on, I told you about a story that we filed yesterday concerning the back-to-school rush, some of the hitches that might be experienced both by students and parents as they get ready for that. Let's take a look.
With the full school reopening less than 24 hours away, the government has reiterated that this is the right time for learners to resume class after a 9-month holiday occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. During a press conference with stakeholders, the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Professor George Magoha, said that social distancing in classrooms still remains a big challenge.
Please don't start saying, oh, this is they are not keeping 1 meter distance. Go and keep it for yourself. We have said that you can use, the teachers should be innovative. And our gallant teachers being innovative, it means every open space in the school, the dining hall, the assembly hall, the school auditorium, can be used as classrooms and converted when the purpose for which it was meant is required.
Among the containment measures put in place by the government are adequate hand-washing stations. All non-essential visits to school by parents and guardians is prohibited. Visitors to schools will be registered and subjected to all infection prevention protocols. Teachers and students shall wear appropriate face masks when in school or while using school transport. Extracurricular activities such as sports, drama, music and prize-giving days involving more than one school remain prohibited for the next 90 days. Principals and head teachers shall maintain a register of sick learners and teachers. They will then inform the county health department.
On the issue of sanitizers, I cannot say that there should be no sanitizers in schools because there may be schools who have no water at all at certain times. Sanitizer may then help. But if sanitizers are brought to school, they must be in the custody of teachers, and they must be used outside in the public place where everybody is seeing, so that our gallant children don't use them for other things.
At the same time, parents and students today streamed into various shops to purchase uniforms and other essential goods. Most of the parents lamenting about the increase in prices, while some of the students were excited on the resumption of learning.
Shopping imekuwa juu kiasi, si kama last time. Sijui kama ni ile mambo hakukuwa na pesa.
Biashara si mzuri. Juu wazazi hawana pesa. Mtu anataka nimuuzie handkerchief kama hii, nimuuzie 30 bob. Handkerchief nimenunua 35. Sasa nashindwa nitauza aje.
I feel great. I really want to learn and do my exams so I can become better in the future.
I miss the teachers, pupils, my friends, and I also miss my class.
It is the last-minute rush for parents and students as they prepare for the school reopening tomorrow after a 7-month break occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. Gigina Magundu, K24, Nairobi.
Some of the issues that have been experienced, of course, as we get into day one of learning right across the country, quite a key issue of concern, and that's a discussion we'll be having right here in studio. Like I told you, looking at it from various angles of this particular story, we'll have the CAS of Education, Zach Kinothia, later on to weigh in on what the government is doing and planning to mitigate some of the challenges they'll face moving forward. But also, we'll be speaking to the stakeholders in this particular process, the parents, the students as well, who will be in this. And lucky today we have someone who's wearing both hats. First of all, he's the CEO of the Kenya Private School Association, Mr. Peter Ndoro, but he's also a parent. And with him is Mark Ndoro, who's in class 7, who'll be weighing in on this, what had been lost, called probably a lost academic year, how he's feeling moving into this new year, and some of the challenges that he's expecting to face as well. So let me welcome them to the show at this particular point. Good morning, Peter. Karibu sana.
Good morning to you and Happy New Year, Jeff. And we are happy to be on this show. And thank you very much for having us.
Happy New Year, Peter. Happy New Year, Mark, as well. Karibu sana.
Happy New Year.
Fantastic stuff. Let's get right to it. And Peter, you'll forgive me because you've been on the show before. I just want to start with Mark on this one. So, Mark, it's been a year, close to a year of not going to school. How's it been during that particular period where you've been at home? Have you been doing, classes digitally, and how's that process been?
I've been having my own private studies, and our school also had online classes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because as you go back, this will be day one of the year 2021. What's your biggest concern, Mark, as you go back to school this week? What are you concerned about? What's your fear as you get back to school?
I feel excited to go back to school after staying home for 9 months. I've missed my friends and my teachers. Yeah, I'm happy.
Okay, fantastic stuff, and it's a good thing that he's happy. Peter, now I'll come to you. Let's talk about this now, as where it stands, because for you, interesting scenario you're playing, because it's two hats you're having on right now, both as a parent and as the CEO of KPCA. It's been 9 months down the line. Do you feel private schools have been left out of the equation? Their plight hasn't been heard because very many of them have been closed, but it seems that the government is moving on forward. That is a non-issue.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And once again, let me say that as private schools, we are ready for the reopening of schools in 2021. We are ready to admit all the learners from kindergarten through to Form 4. It has been a very difficult year, 2020, and we are hopeful that 2021 will be very different. For us, we understand that the challenges in the private sector with us was all over, not just in private schools, but across the country. And the effect of COVID was felt far and wide, including public and private schools. Public schools have had their challenges, so has the private schools had their challenges. For us, the challenges have been more pronounced because, as you know, private schools don't get support from any other quarter other than from the school fees that is paid for by parents when learners are in session. And without this funding from the parents through school fees, private schools have had big challenge in terms of maintaining their programs, meeting their utilities, and also paying their human resources. So it has been a big challenge. We had a discussion with the government and we agreed on what needs to be done. We were promised a stimulus package of 7 billion, but because of the situation that we find ourselves in, the government is not able to deliver on that promise at this point in time, but we have been promised that is still in the pipeline and will be considered when the government gets an opportunity and gets the resources to be able to do that.
Peter, I want to jump in there quickly. Peter, I just want to jump in there as well, because if that stimulus package hasn't been received by private schools, might it be a bit too little too late? Because already, even as of last year, very many schools had closed. We saw a story where some private school proprietors decided to repurpose their facilities. Someone turned it into a chicken coop as well. What happens to these schools? Do you think they'll actually get back into operation later on this year?
Yes, Jeff, it is true that quite a number of private schools shut because of lack of resources to be able to meet their recurrent expenditure. And quite a number of schools also became innovative and started other businesses so that they can be able to raise money to be able to invest in COVID-19 management protocols as given to us by the Ministry of Education. So far, yes, we have a number of schools that have closed, but all these schools that closed, we have already guided them on what needs to be done. We have guided them on advising parents to look for alternative schools. And all these learners who are in this school, about 56,000 of them, will definitely find space in the other private schools that are already in operation. Remember, out of the 11,400 registered private schools that we have in the country, it is only about 300 accommodating 56,000. Yet the entire private school sector accommodates about 2.6 million learners. So we are optimistic that the 56,000 learners will get opportunities in other private schools that are ready and willing to accommodate them at this point in time. Though it's a big challenge, we cannot say that it's not a big challenge to us. It is a big challenge when we see private schools closing down. But as I've said, and I want to reiterate once again, is that we in the private sector are encouraging parents to be optimistic and bring their children to school, because we have put all the measures that needs to be put in place to ensure that our learners, our teachers, our stakeholders visiting schools are safe. And we have done everything that is possible to make sure that we are ready for the learners.
Okay, fantastic stuff. When you spoke about the government, we do have a very able representative of that government, CAS Zach Enodia from the Ministry of Education. Happy New Year, Zach. Welcome to the show.
Happy New Year, my brother Jeff.
Glad to have you on the first show.
Your face is shining.
Yes.
And you look happier.
It was a good holiday.
Is it a holiday or is it the person behind you?
That as well, Zach. Let's get right to it, Zach,
yes.
Even as you talk about it right now. It's day one of
yes.
reopening of learning institutions. There's a lot of back and forth as to when this would exactly happen.
Yes.
Other than social distancing, which of course the ministry has admitted will be a big challenge, what's the ministry's biggest concern in these next couple of weeks as students resume school?
Having said that and assessed our capacity to reopen and successfully monitored this morning that we are top and up to the game, our greatest challenge is the unseen challenge. And that is why we are all ears in the ground. As far as we can say, and I'm happy that you've been able to put it that way, that we know if we enforced social distance with the strength the government has, we are going to crush the dreams and hopes for access to education to many children. So that one, we have held it in abeyance, and we have said, as long as our children can be masked, as long as our children can be cleansed, sanitized, as long as they can maintain hygienic levels, we are saying the rest can be done. Now, the only challenge that we foresee is not the children reporting, because they have reported in earnest and they are happy. Perhaps you have photos and videos of children reporting today, and you will continue monitoring how they are opening. Perhaps the end of today will be 96% successful, but we are saying as a government, we will remain alert for unforeseen, unprecedented, and never thought challenges that may come. And that's what we discussed yesterday in our multi-sectoral meeting, bringing together 7 ministries and all stakeholders, including my brother, who is representing private schools here.
Right.
We are saying this is an all-support project. Private, public, parents, government, donors. This is one of the things that we must do together. Once we get it right, before the end of this week, I'll be able to answer your question next week. Right. What is the biggest challenge facing government in this reopening? Because we will have known. But as far as we are concerned, by now, we have been able to surmount all the challenges that we can foresee humanly possible.
Okay. For some Kenyans, is that question that your boss,
yes.
CS, spoke about, learning under trees?
Yes.
It really pricked the flesh of many Kenyans because they thought in 9 months, really,
yes.
that shouldn't have been the response given. You could have said that at the beginning, children would have gone and started learning under trees and you'd have moved on. But in 9 months, some people are thinking, surely more could have been done for the ministry, Zach.
Let me say the following, Jeff. You and I went to public schools, and there's nothing that we looked forward to than a teacher who went out of his way to say, pick your seat, let's meet outside. I think every person used to look forward to such an evening, or rather to such an afternoon class or a mid-morning class out of class to what has become controversial now, to under the trees.
Right.
We used to go under the trees, and we used to be happy. That one was not a replacement of a class. It is important to say so. In this time, you know, my boss is a medic,
yes,
and he knows better the environment under which this COVID-19 thrives and how it can be mitigated. By saying that people should go under the trees, it was not a replacement of, you know, world classroom reading. And it was not an admission that we have not been able to put classes. On the contrary, we have put more classes than any government in the region has. And I will give you data. You see, if the teacher can decide that he or she has 70 kids in one class in primary or has 50 in secondary, and feels, because all are masked, unlike our time, if the teacher feels they can ask the students to pick their seat and meet outside, Professor Magoha was saying, it is not out of order. If you think you have 100, for example, if you are in Form 3A, and as a teacher you teach Form 3A mathematics, and you teach Form 3B mathematics, instead of juggling in one class and another, you can call them together under an open space under the tree and teach them from there. The uproar that has elicited out of the comment from my boss, I feel sometimes is unjustified from the Kenyans.
Okay, we have a minute to go into break on this one, but very quickly on that, because even as you say, we've built more classes comparatively across the region. There's a country that has spoken about building up to 23.
Rwanda, and it is good because it is Rwanda. Rwanda has built 22 classes. Since 1997, they had not done so. They were able to do it now. Since 1997, we have built more than 50,000 classes. 30,000 classes. That's what we have been doing. And we have 10,000 ongoing classes. Now, in the offering from January, we will be building in 30 counties classrooms, laboratories, and ablution blocks, the toilets.
How many are we expecting to be done from January moving?
From January, we have a program that will use 6.8 billion shillings in 30 counties that are hardest hit by infrastructural limitations because of 100% transition. The other question, Jeff, that people should also consider before criticizing us. Does Rwanda has a kit dedicated towards school infrastructure given to members of parliament? The answer is no. We as government gives 100 million every year to every MP out of 290 to help us elevate government schools by putting ablution blocks, classes, laboratories, workshops, libraries, staff rooms, and this money cannot do anything else except schools and security. And in this schooling, we ensure that we also aggregate by sending more money from ministry called MIF, Ministry Infrastructure Fund, that we keep sending. People should stop comparing us with countries that have done so good in a short time. They should see us that we have been doing so the best for a long time, and we will continue doing it.
Okay, let's take a short break at that particular point in time. Of course, we have the CAS, Minister of Education, Zach Inode, with us as well. Also joining the conversation, digitally is Peter Ndoro, the CEO of the Kenya Private Schools Association. We'd love to hear from you as well. Any questions, any concerns, any comments, you can get me at I am Jeff Mote, the WhatsApp number also at the bottom of the screen. Back after a short break.